because the music will start playing it, because it's good to talk, it's good to say.
What if the world's gentlest voice was shaped by silence? Long before the cardigan and the calm smile, there was a boy in Pennsylvania watching life from behind a window. He was born into comfort, surrounded by books, music, and safety. Yet comfort does not protect a child from loneliness. Severe asthma kept him indoors while other children played freely outside. He would watch them run across the neighborhood lawns, their laughter drifting through the glass while he remained inside. That isolation didn't just make him sad, it made him observant. He began studying people quietly, noticing how emotions moved across faces, how joy could quickly turn into insecurity, how anger often masked fear. But children can sense difference, and they don't always respond with kindness. He was teased for his weight, mocked, chased down streets while other boys laughed. That humiliation could have hardened him. It could have planted bitterness. Instead, it planted something unexpected: empathy. He understood pain because he had felt it deeply. He understood exclusion because he had lived it. And in that quiet room, staring out at a world that seemed distant, a promise was forming, though he didn't yet have words for it. One day, he would speak to children who felt unseen. One day, he would make sure no child felt as invisible as he once did. And that promise would change television forever. Sometimes, a single sentence can build a person from the inside out. For him, that sentence came from his grandfather. Every Sunday, he escaped to a farm where he wasn't defined by asthma, weight, or awkwardness. There, he could breathe. There, he could explore fields and feel the earth beneath his feet. But more important than the space was the voice waiting for him. His grandfather would look at him and say, "You make this day special just by being you." No conditions, no expectations, no demand to be smarter, thinner, stronger, or louder. Just being was enough. Those words became a foundation. In a world that constantly measures worth through achievement, that affirmation was revolutionary. It taught him that value is not earned through performance, it is inherent. As he entered high school, he slowly stepped out of the shadow of his childhood insecurity. A friendship helped him gain confidence. Activities like music and student leadership gave him structure. The shy boy who once avoided attention became student council president. But success did not erase his past. Instead, it deepened his understanding. He knew how fragile confidence could be. He carried his grandfather's sentence like armor. Later, when he would speak to millions of children, that same message would echo through every episode. You are special, not because you achieve, but because you exist. And in a culture obsessed with comparison, that message felt radical. The first time he saw television, he didn't laugh, he felt disappointment. The screen showed slapstick comedy, exaggerated chaos, and humor built on embarrassment. While others found it entertaining, he saw something wasted. Television was entering homes across America. It had the power to shape minds, influence behavior, and define culture. Yet instead of nurturing, it seemed to mock. Instead of calming, it overwhelmed. In that moment, a question formed in his mind. What if this medium could be used differently? He could have chosen a stable career in music. He was talented enough, but he felt pulled towards something bigger. Television, he realized, could either exploit attention or cultivate it. It could distract children from their emotions or help them understand them. He chose the harder path, to enter an industry driven by ratings and attempt to change it from within. Working behind the scenes at a major network, he learned how profit shaped programming. Sponsors dictated tone, noise generated numbers, heart was secondary. The more he observed, the clearer his conviction became. If television was going to matter, it had to slow down. It had to respect children's intelligence. It had to treat them as human beings, not future consumers. So he stepped away from commercial success and chose purpose instead. It was a risk that made little financial sense, But for him, impact mattered more than income. And that decision would define the rest of his life. What if children's television didn't need to shout to be heard? When his program first aired nationally in 1968, it felt almost out of place. Other children's shows were fast, loud, and filled with exaggerated energy. His was quiet. He walked through a door. He changed his shoes. He sang gently. The pace was deliberate, almost slow for television standards. But that slowness was intentional. He understood that children process the world differently. They need time. They need repetition. They need reassurance. So he created rituals. The cardigan wasn't just clothing. It was a signal. The sneakers weren't random. They were a transition into safety. Every movement was designed to lower anxiety and build familiarity. Behind the scenes, he wrote nearly every script himself. He composed songs that explained anger, jealousy, fear, and love in language children could understand. He consulted child psychologists to ensure that every message aligned with developmental reality. He wasn't guessing, he was building with care. The show grew steadily. Families trusted it. Teachers recommended it. Children felt seen by it. It wasn't flashy, but it was consistent. And consistency builds trust. In a media environment increasingly driven by spectacle, he chose steadiness. He chose emotional honesty. And by doing so, he created something far more powerful than entertainment. He created a neighborhood that felt like home. Could gentleness survive in a political storm? In 1969, public broadcasting funding was under threat. A proposed budget cut would have severely limited educational programming. He was invited to speak before the Senate. Many expected a formal argument or emotional appeal. Instead, he offered sincerity. He spoke calmly about children's feelings. He explained how teaching them to manage anger could prevent violence later in life. He quoted lyrics from his show to illustrate emotional regulation. There was no attack, no partisan tone, just conviction. The senator listening had a reputation for toughness, yet by the end of the hearing, the funding remained intact. That moment became symbolic. It demonstrated that persuasion does not require aggression. But politics wasn't the only arena where his values were tested. He cast one of the first black actors on a recurring role on children's television. During a time when racial tensions still divided communities, he shared a small pool with him on air, a quiet yet powerful statement about equality. He never delivered grand speeches about justice. Instead, he modeled it. His approach proved something essential. Lasting influence often arrives softly, and sometimes the calmest voice in the room carries the greatest weight. Kindness does not mean flawlessness. He faced complicated decisions, especially during eras when social norms were harsh and unforgiving. In one close friendship, fear of public backlash influenced choices he later regretted. At the time, protecting the show felt like protecting children. Years later, he reflected, apologized, and evolved. That evolution matters. It reveals that moral clarity is often developed over time. He did not claim perfection. Instead, he demonstrated humility. When he realized he could have responded differently, he chose growth rather than defensiveness. He also confronted external attacks. Hate groups attempted to misuse his image to spread harmful messages. Commercial brands tried to parody or profit from his reputation. He defended the integrity of his work fiercely when necessary. While his demeanor was gentle, his boundaries were firm. There is a misconception that kindness equals passivity. His life disproved that. He could be compassionate and resolute at the same time. That balance is rare. He showed that you can admit mistakes without abandoning principles. You can grow without losing your core identity, and you can defend what matters without becoming cruel. In a culture that often demands either aggression or silence, he modeled a third option: principled calm. People saw warmth, they did not always see discipline. For decades, he maintained the same daily routine. He rose early, he swam laps, he prayed, He wrote, he rehearsed. His weight remained at 143 pounds, a number he cherished because it symbolized, "I love you." That symbolism wasn't trivial to him. It was a reminder that love required intention. He avoided excess. He chose simplicity in a world that glamorized indulgence. Even his diet reflected his belief in compassion toward living beings. These choices weren't about image, they were about alignment. He wanted his private life to match his public message. Consistency is exhausting. Maintaining kindness when cameras are off requires discipline. But he believed children deserved authenticity. They would sense insincerity immediately. His rituals created stability. Stability created clarity. And clarity allowed him to speak about emotions without contradiction. In an industry known for ego and chaos, he built a life of structure and self-control. That structure sustained him through decades of public attention. Behind every gentle smile was a deliberate decision to live intentionally, and that quiet self-mastery made his message believable. Should children be shielded from reality or guided through it? He believed in guidance. When national tragedies occurred, he addressed them carefully. When topics like death, divorce, or fear surfaced, he did not avoid them. Instead, he simplified without oversimplifying. He believed that naming fear reduces its power. He worked with psychologists to ensure his language matched children's developmental stages. He avoided euphemisms that created confusion. If someone died, he said they died. If someone felt angry, he said anger was natural. Emotional literacy was central to his philosophy. He rejected the idea that children needed constant distraction. He believed they needed tools. Songs became coping mechanisms. Puppet conversations became rehearsals for real-life scenarios. By normalizing difficult emotions, he created resilience. He showed children that feelings are not dangerous, they are signals, and signals can be understood. His approach required courage. Discussing heavy subjects risked backlash from parents who preferred avoidance, but he trusted children's intelligence. And because he trusted them, they trusted him in return. When his final episode aired, it felt gentle rather than dramatic. He had carefully planned his goodbye. The themes focused on creativity and expression. Every farewell felt intentional. Soon after, the world faced tragedy. Though retired, he returned briefly to offer comfort. His advice was simple: look for the helpers. In moments of chaos, he encouraged attention towards those who serve rather than those who destroy. That perspective reframed fear into hope. He had always prepared audiences for eventual loss. He believed honesty about death allowed healthier grieving. When he himself faced a serious diagnosis, he approached it with the same calm he had modeled for decades. Even during illness, he remained focused on family, music, and quiet reflection. His passing was not theatrical, it was peaceful. Surrounded by loved ones, he left the world as he had lived in it, softly. But softness does not equal smallness. The absence of his presence was deeply felt, because by then, millions had internalized his message: you are worthy exactly as you are. That idea continues to resonate long after the cameras stopped rolling. Why does his message endure in a louder, faster world? Because noise has limits, depth does not. Today's media landscape moves rapidly. Attention spans shrink, outrage trends. Yet his philosophy remains relevant. Children still struggle with insecurity. Adults still carry childhood wounds. The need for reassurance has not disappeared. His life demonstrated that influence does not require dominance, it requires consistency. He did not compete for spectacle. He cultivated trust. Over decades, that trust became cultural memory. His legacy is not confined to television episodes. It exists in parents who speak more gently because of him, in teachers who validate feelings, in adults who learned, perhaps for the first time, that anger can be managed and sadness can be spoken aloud. He did not promise perfection, he offered presence. And in an age where presence is fragmented by distraction, that offering feels revolutionary. The boy who once watched from a window grew into a man who invited the world into a neighborhood built on empathy. He proved that kindness is not naive, it is strategic, it is resilient, it is transformative. And perhaps his greatest lesson is this: in a culture that rewards performance, choosing compassion may be the boldest act of all.